is a strange irony about love, that it is both the most sacred and the most misunderstood thing in the world. For we speak of love as if it were a thing to be found, a treasure buried somewhere outside of ourselves, waiting for the right hands to dig it up. Yet the truth, and perhaps the tragedy, is that most people never realize that love is not discovered. It is built. It is not given. It is grown. And when we forget this, when we chase after people instead of principles, we invite ruin in the name of romance. It's not that God hides love from us. It's that he hides it in us, so that only those who are willing to grow in wisdom, patience, and character may find it. But the world has turned this divine pursuit into a game of appetites, and our hearts, instead of being altars, have become marketplaces. That is why so many marry out of hunger rather than wholeness, and wake up one day wondering why the feast turned into famine. And here lies the reason we must speak about who not to give your heart to, not because judgment is holy, but because discernment is. Love is sacred, and what is sacred must be guarded. You do not hand the key to your spirit to one who does not know how to hold it. You do not give your future to one who has made no peace with their past. You do not build eternity with someone who fears the silence of their own soul. The world may call this prudence cold or outdated, but even the coldest truth is kinder than the warmth of a lie. We are not called to follow feelings blindly, but to see through them, to love, not merely with emotion, but with clarity. For emotion, when ungoverned by truth, becomes idolatry. It is not love when it blinds. It is love when it reveals. And so, when I speak of the 5 types of people you should never date, I am not speaking of others, but of reflections, the 5 shadows that dwell in all of us, that we must confront before we can truly love. The real warning is not avoid them, but do not become them. For the mirror shows not only the danger outside, but the temptation within. The first is the taker, the one who confuses love with consumption. They do not seek relationship, they seek supply. They will tell you they need you, but what they mean is, they need what you give them: your attention, your affirmation, your energy. To them, love is not a covenant, it is a transaction. And the tragedy is not that they take, but that they cannot give, for they have never learned to draw from the well of their own soul. You will know them by their hunger, the kind that never ends. They will praise you when you fill it and resent you when you do not. They will make you feel like a savior, but that is only because they have not yet met their own. And if you are not careful, you will begin to mistake the feeling of being needed for the experience of being loved. But need without responsibility is not love. It is dependence dressed in poetry. And dependence, though sweet in its early stages, becomes a silent kind of slavery. True love, you see, does not drain. It multiplies. When 2 whole people love, their strength is shared, not stolen. But when a half person clings to another half, they do not become whole. They merely trade pieces of their emptiness until both are tired. The taker cannot love you, because they have not yet learned that love is not a feeding ground. It is a fountain. Yet, before we despise the taker, we must confess we have all been one. We have all reached for others to fix what only God could heal. We have all confused attention with affection, validation with value, connection with calling. The lesson is not to hate the taker, but to outgrow them, to become someone who no longer feeds on others because they have learned to feast on truth. The second is the pretender, the one who wears virtue like a costume. They know the language of love, but not its discipline. They can quote scripture, but they cannot live it. They present themselves as moral, faithful, or spiritually grounded, but beneath the performance lies an untouched heart. Their greatest skill is imitation not of Christ, but of those who appear holy. They will speak of commitment, but fear accountability. They will tell you what they believe, but not what they wrestle with. They will appear flawless because they have made an idol of being seen as good rather than becoming good. And what is most dangerous about the pretender is that they can fool not only others, but themselves. Love, in their eyes, becomes a stage, a place to perform righteousness without practicing it. They will talk of loyalty, but abandon when love becomes inconvenient. They will speak of truth, but hide behind charm. They will praise humility, but cannot endure correction. To them, love is not a covenant. It is a costume party, and as long as the mask stays on, they are safe from being known. But real love does not fear exposure. It invites it. For love is not the hiding of our weaknesses, but the courage to be seen in spite of them. The pretender's tragedy is that they crave connection, but cannot endure truth. And truth is the oxygen of all lasting love. Without it, every relationship suffocates. The only cure for pretense is honesty, the brutal, liberating kind. The honesty that confesses, I am not yet what I should be, but I am willing to be changed. The honesty that trades performance for transformation. It is better to be raw and real than polished and false, for God cannot heal what we keep pretending is whole. And perhaps that is the secret. We attract at the level of our honesty. To meet someone who is truthful about who they are is to find a heart that God can work through. To meet someone who hides behind their own holiness is to step into a labyrinth of illusion. Do not fall in love with appearances, for even light can be counterfeited when it shines from pride instead of purity. The third is the wanderer, the restless soul that mistakes motion for meaning. They are always chasing something, a new high, a new face, a new version of themselves. To them, stability feels like a cage, and depth feels like drowning. They will tell you they love you, but what they love is the feeling of falling in love, that intoxicating rush of novelty that fades as soon as reality asks for commitment. The wanderer is not evil. They are lost. They are running, not from you, but from themselves. They live in a perpetual state of becoming, never arriving, because to arrive would mean to face their own reflection. And what they fear most is not boredom, but stillness, for in stillness the truth speaks, and the truth tells them they are empty. You cannot anchor a wanderer. You can only pray that one day they will stop long enough to let God still their storm. For no love can compete with a man or woman who is at war with their own restlessness. To love such a person is to become the ground they trample on their way to the next horizon. Yet even the wanderer is not beyond redemption, for their restlessness, if surrendered, can become wholly the yearning of a soul that refuses to settle for less than what is real. When the wanderer stops chasing feeling and starts pursuing truth, their energy becomes purpose, their curiosity becomes wisdom, and their search becomes worship. The heart that was once a storm becomes a compass pointing home. The fourth is the idolater, the one who loves you more than truth. They do not see you as a person, but as a god. They place you on a pedestal, and what begins as flattery soon becomes imprisonment. For when someone worships you, they no longer see you. They see their own fantasy projected onto your form. And sooner or later, when reality fails to match the dream, they will crucify you for not being divine. To be idolized is intoxicating, but it is also dangerous, for it turns love into religion, and religion without truth always ends in ruin. The idolater's love feels like devotion, but it is dependency. It feels like loyalty, but it is fear, and no one can breathe in the air of constant adoration without choking on it. To love truly is not to idolize, but to honor, to see the flaws, the wounds, the humanity, and love them because they are real. To love is to worship not the person, but the divine spark within them. And when two souls do this, when both refuse to worship one another and choose instead to walk side by side in reverence of something higher, then love becomes not an altar to the self, but a temple to the divine. And the fifth, perhaps the most dangerous of all, is the empty one, not because they are wicked, but because they are hollow. They have given away their soul to comfort, to ease, to distraction. They laugh easily, but think rarely. They move through life like tourists in their own existence, seeking pleasure but not purpose. They are not cruel, they are numb, and their emptiness is contagious. To love an empty person is to risk being emptied yourself. For the spirit, like the body, becomes what it consumes, and when you feed on shallowness, you starve in depth. The empty person does not destroy love, they dilute it, until what was once sacred becomes ordinary, and what was once burning becomes lukewarm. The remedy is not rejection, but awakening. For all of us carry some measure of emptiness, a hollow place where God once belonged. The task is not to fill it with noise or romance or ambition, but to let truth dwell there again, to let silence heal what entertainment has numbed, to let the soul, long asleep, open its eyes. The truth is, the 5 people you should never date are 5 conditions of the human heart: the taker, the pretender, the wanderer, the idolater, the empty one. And until we confront these in ourselves, we will keep finding them in others. For love, in the end, is not about finding the right person, it is about becoming the right soul. There comes a point in every soul's journey where the question is no longer, who should I love, but what kind of person must I become to love rightly? For love is not simply a reward for goodness, nor a transaction of affection. It is a mirror. It reveals with ruthless clarity the state of our inner world. The people we attract, the hearts we chase, the pain we repeat, all of it speaks to the condition of our own soul. We do not fall into relationships by accident. We gravitate toward what feels familiar, what resonates with the frequencies of our own wounds. The taker is drawn to the giver, who has not yet learned to set boundaries. The pretender finds the believer who still confuses potential with promise. The wanderer discovers the dreamer who cannot bear to wake. The idolater meets the insecure heart that still mistakes worship for love. The empty one finds the hopeful soul, who believes they can fill what only grace can heal. And so, what feels like chemistry is often history repeating itself, unhealed history masquerading as destiny. Until we confront the truth within us, we will keep falling in love with mirrors that show us what we refuse to see. Love will keep breaking us, not because it is cruel, but because it is committed to revealing who we are beneath the illusions we cling to. To love well, one must be transformed. And transformation begins with honesty, the kind of honesty that dismantles the fragile illusions upon which we've built our identity. We must face the uncomfortable truth that sometimes we loved others for the wrong reasons. We loved them because they distracted us from our emptiness, because they validated our worth, because they made us feel chosen when we had not yet chosen ourselves. But love that begins in lack will always end in loss. For the law of love is this: you can only give what you have become. The modern world has turned relationships into currencies of self-worth. We measure our value by who desires us, rather than by who we are when no one is watching. We seek romance to escape the silence of self-examination, to drown the divine whisper that asks, who are you when you are not loved by anyone? Yet it is only by answering that question, by meeting ourselves in the solitude of the soul, that we become capable of the kind of love that does not enslave or destroy. We must return to first principles. That love is not possession, but participation. To love is to join another in the dance of becoming, not to complete them, but to grow with them, side by side, both moving toward a light greater than either could reach alone. The tragedy of modern love is that we no longer seek union in truth. We seek escape in illusion. We treat affection as anesthesia for a spiritual wound that only truth can heal. To be transformed, then, is to confront the disease of the soul that mistakes comfort for happiness. The taker must learn that the deepest joy is not in receiving, but in giving from a place of wholeness. The pretender must dare to live without masks, to embrace imperfection as the soil in which grace grows. The wanderer must learn to stay, to let love be not a thrill, but a vow. The idolater must release control and allow love to be human. And the empty one must awaken to fill their hollow spaces not with noise, but with truth. It is only in this inner reformation that the wealth of the Spirit begins to grow. For the greatest form of wealth is not material, it is moral. It is the abundance of wisdom, the richness of character, the prosperity of peace. You can lose money and remain rich if your heart is full. You can gain the world and remain poor if your soul is hollow. The pursuit of wealth without inner transformation is like building a cathedral of marble with a foundation of sand. It will glisten for a season, but it will crumble when the storms come. And the storms will come not to punish us, but to purify. For God in His mercy will shake everything false until only what is real remains. Love is one of those storms. It exposes every idol we have built and every lie we have lived. It reveals whether our faith was rooted in truth or convenience. It is easy to speak of God's love while standing in the sunshine of success, but the real test of faith is how we love when nothing is working, when the heart is bleeding, when we are tempted to close it forever. That is when love either becomes holy or dies in the shallows of self-preservation. You see, discernment is not about suspicion. It is about sight. It is not the act of judging others, but of perceiving truth beneath appearances. To discern in love is to recognize that not every soul is ready to walk with you into the light, and not every connection is meant to be kept. Some people come as lessons, others as mirrors, and a few as destiny. The wise heart knows how to love them all without losing itself to any. To love with discernment is to walk in the delicate balance between compassion and clarity. It is to understand that forgiveness does not require foolishness, and grace does not mean access. It is to bless the ones who cannot stay, while still keeping your heart open to those who can. It is to learn that love, like fire, must be handled with reverence, or it will consume more than it warms. This discernment is not merely romantic, it is spiritual. It is the same wisdom that teaches us to separate desire from calling, comfort from peace, ambition from purpose. For the same patterns that blind us in love often blind us in life. The heart that chases what glitters will fall for wealth that corrupts. The soul that confuses comfort with happiness will build an empire of emptiness. And so, to understand whom not to love is to understand what not to worship. The taker mirrors greed. The pretender mirrors pride. The wanderer mirrors distraction. The idolater mirrors false worship. The empty one mirrors apathy. Each of them is a reflection of a deeper disease, the spiritual poverty that comes when we replace meaning with pleasure, truth with appearance, calling with convenience. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once the veil is lifted, you begin to move differently. You begin to choose differently. You stop chasing what drains you and start cultivating what grows you. You stop asking, who will love me? And start asking, who am I becoming when I love? This shift is everything. It is the turning point from survival to transformation, from scarcity to abundance. For love, when rooted in truth, does not shrink you, it expands you. It does not steal your peace, it deepens it. It does not make you forget yourself. It makes you more of who you were created to be. To live like this is to walk in a kind of wealth that the world cannot comprehend. It is to be free, not from pain, but from the fear of pain. It is to know that love, even when it breaks you, is never wasted. For every heartbreak that purifies you is a rehearsal for eternity. It teaches the soul to love more wisely, more deeply, more like the divine. And perhaps that is the great secret hidden beneath all our suffering, that God allows us to be broken only so that love can be rebuilt on truth. The counterfeit must die so that the real can live. The idol must fall so that the heart can rise. The false wealth must fade so that the soul can finally taste abundance. For what good is it to find the right person if we remain the wrong soul? What good is it to be loved by the world and yet unknown by ourselves? What good is it to hold another's hand if we have never learned to hold our own heart in truth and grace? No. The first love must always be between the self and the soul, between who we are and who we are meant to become. When that union is formed, every other relationship becomes an extension of it. Love ceases to be a desperate search and becomes a natural overflow. There is a sacred mystery in timing the way God arranges seasons, not according to our impatience, but according to our becoming. Love, like purpose, must mature in its appointed hour. Yet we are creatures addicted to hurry. We rush into affection as we rush into ambition, mistaking urgency for destiny. We think that if something burns brightly, it must be divine. If it comes easily, it must be meant to be. But the truth is that nothing holy grows in haste. The soul, like the seed, must go through its winter before it can bloom. There are moments when God withholds what we think we are ready for, not because he delights in denial, but because he knows that blessing in the wrong season can destroy. It is not that love is absent. It is that we are not yet able to carry it. For love is weight, not wings. It does not lift us into fantasy. It anchors us into reality. And only those whose roots are deep can bear that kind of weight without breaking. You will know a soul unready by its restlessness. It prays for love while running from solitude. It asks for purpose while avoiding discipline. It begs for peace while entertaining chaos. Such a soul seeks harvest without planting, glory without growth, resurrection without death. And yet, heaven does not negotiate with immaturity. It waits patiently until the heart has learned stillness, until what once felt like delay becomes preparation. This is why so many confuse heartbreak for abandonment. They do not realize that sometimes God removes what we idolize to return us to what is real. He takes away the illusion so that the truth can breathe again. For how could he bless a heart that worships romance more than righteousness? How could he entrust the sacred to one who still mistakes emotion for eternity? The heartbreaks that humble us are not punishments, they are purifications. They strip away our counterfeit loves so that when the real thing comes, we no longer confuse hunger with holiness. To understand divine timing is to understand refinement. Every waiting season is a classroom where the soul learns patience, discernment, humility, and strength. To the untrained eye, it looks like silence. To the awakened heart, it is sacred engineering. The delay is never denial, it is alignment. For heaven measures readiness not by desire, but by stewardship. Wealth, too, obeys this law. True abundance is never granted to those who would be corrupted by it. The man who cannot govern his emotions cannot govern his fortune. The woman who chases status will lose herself in success. God withholds not to punish, but to protect. For what is worse than getting everything you prayed for, only to discover you were not ready to carry it? In the realm of spirit, maturity is not measured by age, but by surrender. It is not how long you have believed, but how deeply you have allowed belief to break and rebuild you. The immature heart wants control. The mature one seeks obedience. The immature wants proof. The mature walks by faith. The immature demands clarity. The mature lives in trust. Love, when it finally comes, demands this kind of maturity. It will test your patience, your humility, your capacity for forgiveness. It will ask you to die to pride and rise into service. It will not flatter your ego. It will refine your soul. And if you are not prepared, it will feel like suffering. But if you are, it will feel like salvation. The purification of desire is perhaps the holiest work of all. For desire is the engine of the human spirit. It moves us. drives us, defines us. But when it is unrefined, it becomes our ruin. We desire love without labor, peace without surrender, wealth without sacrifice. We pray for greatness, but resent the grind that forms it. And so God, in His mercy, refines our desires through delay. He lets them burn until the impurities rise to the surface. Until what we once called love is revealed to be lust for validation. Until what we once called faith is unmasked as fear of being forgotten. Then, in that holy stillness, desire begins to transform. It ceases to demand and begins to align. It no longer says, "Give me what I want," but "Make me ready for what you will." That is the turning point of every true believer when prayer shifts from manipulation to surrender. When we stop trying to bend heaven to our timeline and start allowing heaven to bend us into shape, mature love is born here in the crucible of waiting, in the quiet between heartbreak and healing. It is forged in the fires of disappointment and cooled in the waters of grace. It is not found in the chaos of craving, but in the calm of conviction. And when two souls who have both walked that valley finally meet, they recognize each other not by the thrill of passion, but by the peace of purpose. There is no chasing, no proving, no pretending, only a mutual knowing. You have been tempered too. To love from that place is to participate in something divine. It is to understand that love is not the goal, but the evidence. Evidence that you have been transformed, that you have become whole enough to hold another without needing them to fill your wounds. It is to realize that the purpose of relationship is not happiness, but holiness. The sanctification of two souls learning to mirror God's love in human form. And what of wealth? What of ambition, success, the material fruit of our labor? These too must pass through the same refining fire. The immature seek riches to prove worth. The mature seek resources to serve purpose. Wealth, in its truest sense, is not a reward, but a responsibility to build, to bless, to heal. To the untransformed, it becomes an idol. To the transformed, an instrument. We live in a culture that worships speed and spectacle. We confuse visibility with value. We are taught to measure success by the noise it makes. But heaven measures success by silence, by what happens in secret, in the chambers of the soul where no applause reaches. For there and only there is the true worth of a person revealed. To grow in wealth without growing in wisdom is to build a palace with no foundation. To grow in love without growing in truth is to plant a garden with no roots. To grow in faith without growing in humility is to construct a tower that will one day fall under its own pride. The world may call these achievements. Heaven calls them warnings. And yet, the beauty of divine mercy is that even our failures are repurposed into wisdom. The heartbreak that humbles us becomes the soil for compassion. The delays that frustrate us become the training ground for trust. The losses that break us become the doorways to deeper faith. Nothing in the hands of God is wasted. The wise heart learns this rhythm. To wait is not to waste. To be still is not to stagnate. Every season of seeming silence is forming something unseen. The fruit ripens in its time. The roots deepen in their darkness. The heart strengthens in its solitude. And when the appointed time arrives, everything that once felt withheld will be revealed not as loss, but as preparation. You will see then that divine timing is not about when you receive, but who you have become by the time you do. For the gifts of God are measured not by their beauty, but by the capacity of the soul that holds them. Some pray for abundance and are given wilderness, because the wilderness is where capacity grows. If you learn to love the waiting will transform you. If you learn to find peace in the unseen, the seen will no longer rule you. If you learn to let go of your own timeline, you will find that what is meant for you has been walking toward you all along, patient as grace, precise as destiny. And when it arrives, you will understand why you had to lose what you lost, why you had to walk through fire, why you had to wait alone. For love, real love, like truth, like purpose, like God Himself, never arrives early, and it never arrives late. It comes exactly when you have become the kind of soul that will not ruin it. There is a moment in every journey when love, purpose, and power begin to merge, when the soul that has been shaped by patience is finally trusted with influence. For only a transformed heart can be trusted with the weight of destiny. The unformed spirit, still ruled by ego, turns every gift into a weapon, but the sanctified soul turns every blessing into a tool of service. This is why God hides true power behind the veil of character. He does not withhold it. He refines us until we can hold it without destroying ourselves. When love matures, it becomes stewardship. It ceases to be about possession and becomes about responsibility. To love someone deeply is to be entrusted with their soul, their scars, their history, and this too is a form of wealth. Not material wealth, but sacred trust. For what greater treasure could a person carry than the heart of another, willingly placed in their care? And yet, this kind of love cannot be sustained by emotion alone. It must be sustained by moral strength. Moral strength is not a loud virtue. It does not boast. It does not demand to be seen. It is the quiet discipline of consistency, the inner fortitude to choose truth when deception would be easier. It is the courage to protect purity in a world that rewards performance. It is the resolve to stay faithful when the thrill has faded, to keep building when the applause has gone silent, to keep giving when no one sees. This is the foundation upon which divine love and divine wealth both rest, not talent, not charm, not opportunity, but character. For character is the currency of heaven. Without it, every gift becomes a curse. A person with wealth but no virtue becomes enslaved by the very riches they thought would set them free. A person with love but no discipline becomes consumed by the very passion they thought would save them. Everything holy collapses in the absence of moral strength. We often speak of success as if it were an achievement, but in truth, it is a stewardship. To be trusted with influence is to be tested by it. The heart that once prayed for increase will now be examined by abundance, not to expose weakness, but to reveal whether growth has truly taken root. For abundance is not measured by how much you have, but by how much you can give without losing your peace. When love and purpose align, they create wealth that cannot be stolen, the wealth of meaning. Meaning is the highest currency of all, for it gives value to everything else. Without meaning, money becomes vanity, work becomes exhaustion, and even love becomes confusion. But with meaning, even suffering becomes sacred, even loss becomes wisdom, even waiting becomes worship. To walk in divine stewardship is to see every aspect of your life, every relationship, every resource, every trial, as part of a larger design. Nothing is random to the soul that has surrendered. Every person you meet is either a teacher or a test. Every success is either a tool or a temptation. Every delay is either protection or preparation. And the wise heart learns to ask not, "Why is this happening to me?" but "What is this shaping in me?" The union between love and purpose transforms the ordinary into the eternal. When two souls both understand this, their relationship ceases to be about comfort and becomes about calling. They begin to see their love as a shared mission, not merely to please each other, but to reflect something of the divine to the world. Their conversations become prayers. Their home becomes a sanctuary. Their union becomes a sermon without words. This is what marriage was always meant to be, not a contract of convenience, but a covenant of transformation. And in the same way, wealth, when married to purpose, becomes holy. The person who earns with integrity, gives with joy, and serves with humility becomes a vessel of abundance through which heaven blesses the earth. Money itself is neutral, a servant or a tyrant, depending on whose hands hold it. When love rules the heart, wealth serves humanity. When greed rules the heart, wealth enslaves it. The truly rich are not those who have more, but those who fear less. They are not anxious about loss because their treasure is not stored in vaults or titles, but in the lives they've touched, the truths they've lived, the love they've given. This is why the world can strip them of everything and still find them unbroken. Their joy is not rented by circumstance, it is owned by conviction. The modern soul, however, struggles with this kind of wealth. We live in an age that prizes visibility over virtue, where even goodness is performed for validation. We curate holiness for public consumption but neglect private transformation. We build platforms larger than our foundations. And then we wonder why everything collapses when the storm comes. But the storm is mercy. The collapse is grace. For it reminds us that nothing eternal can be built on the applause of men. Only what is rooted in truth will endure. The world may reward the charming, but heaven rewards the faithful. The world may celebrate the loud, but heaven anoints the steadfast. The world may measure by speed, but heaven measures by depth. And when the heart finally understands this, when it stops chasing attention and begins cultivating authenticity, it becomes unstoppable. For nothing can shake the soul that knows its purpose. It no longer begs for validation because it has found vocation. It no longer seeks to be impressive because it has chosen to be useful. And usefulness, not fame, is the truest sign of divine favor. To love with this kind of maturity is to see relationship not as escape, but as empowerment. The right person will not complete you. They will call you higher. They will not indulge your weakness. They will challenge your growth. They will not compete with your purpose. They will protect it. And you will do the same for them. This mutual sharpening, this exchange of light, is what makes love eternal. It is not sustained by emotion, but by mission. That is why God often waits to unite two people until both have learned to walk alone. For if two broken people meet too soon, they will mistake codependency for covenant. But when two healed people meet, their union becomes multiplication, not subtraction. They do not take from one another, they expand one another. They do not lose themselves in love. They find God more fully through it. The same principle governs every kind of wealth. When purpose and abundance meet before character is mature, the result is corruption. But when character precedes increase, the result is creation. Wealth in the hands of the wise becomes an instrument of healing. Schools built, lives lifted, futures restored. The same wealth in the hands of the unhealed becomes a monument to ego and an altar to emptiness. So the question is not, how much can I get, but how much can I carry without losing myself? How much blessing can I hold without pride leaking into gratitude? How much love can I receive without making it an idol? How much influence can I wield without turning it into control? This is the stewardship that separates the chosen from the consumed. When you reach this level of consciousness, every choice becomes worship. The way you love, the way you work, the way you give, the way you wait, all of it becomes an offering. You no longer compartmentalize your life into sacred and secular. Everything becomes sacred. The mundane becomes meaningful because your heart has been transformed into an altar. And this is the highest form of wealth. To live with such integrity that your very presence enriches others. To walk into a room and bring peace. To speak and awaken courage. To love and restore faith. That is what it means to be wealthy in the eyes of heaven, to live as a conduit of grace, not a collector of gain. For in the end, every empire built for self will crumble, but the life built on service will shine forever. Every crown forged in ego will rust, but every act done in love will echo through eternity. And when your days are over, the question will not be how much you earned, but how much you enlightened. Not how high you climbed, but how many you lifted. Not what you possessed, but what you became.